You're listening to the Lost Geographer podcast, and this is episode 23 on business and literacy.
In our modern globalized society, understanding geography and culture is crucial if you want to succeed in life. Unfortunately, many people are still unaware of the world around them, which is fueled by media that are focused only on profits, clicks, and promoting agendas rather than providing accurate information. Here at the Lost Geographer, we aim to promote geographic and cultural literacy through education and travel by bypassing the media. We have guests who talk about their own countries from a native perspective, travellers telling their stories and lessons, and related topics that will aid you on your journey towards geographic and cultural literacy. Get the raw, candid truth about the world we live in and understand your place in it. Because at the end of the day, it's your world. Own it.
Hey everybody, so while this podcast and site do increase your geographic and cultural literacy, the best way to attain literacy is through travel. Now, I understand that many people think traveling is expensive and stressful, and understandably so. However, it doesn't have to be this way. Traveling can be cheap and relatively stress-free if you know the right places to look for flights and already have an understanding of common travel mistakes. If you want to learn how, check out The Ultimate Guide to Smart Budget Traveling. It's a video course that will teach you how to save hundreds on your next vacation and thousands throughout your life by showing you how to make different rewards programs work for you and introduce you to sites that have prices you could have only dreamed of. I will show you how I've done things such as book transatlantic and transcontinental flights in the US for less than $10, and how I don't pay ATM fees anywhere in the world and withdraw money according to the exact exchange rate and not get ripped off. Want to learn more? Check out literacy.thelostgeographer.net for more information. Consider it an investment to learn how to invest in experiences to become geographically and culturally literate. Again, you can find it at literacy.thelostgeographer.net. Hey everybody, welcome to the Lost Geographer podcast, where our goal is to promote geographic and cultural literacy. It's your world, own it. I'm your host, Rohit Amrithar, founder of The Lost Geographer. You can find us at www.thelostgeographer.net. And on this episode, I'm going to talk about business and literacy. I'll go into that in a little bit more detail later, but before we start with that, I want to thank you guys for helping me get this far in the podcast. I was hoping that I could get this far. Part of me expected there to not be much listenership, but you guys have been awesome. You guys have been very supportive, downloading, sharing, and just supporting my podcast. And so first of all, I want to thank you all. Episode 23 is great. I mean, we're this far. So yeah, that's the first thing. And so I know lately there haven't been as many country episodes on this podcast, and I know you really like those. Those are a lot of fun. I really like them too, personally. It's just that I have been very busy with school, and interviewing some of these people sometimes does take a lot of coordination. But do not worry. After this episode, you will have a whole heap of country episodes coming your way, courtesy of me. That's not to say that these other episodes that I've been doing aren't fun. They have important messages, and the ones where I interview others, I really enjoy these people and what they do. So yeah, these are all great episodes, and that's a lot of great content. However, I know a lot of you listen particularly for the country episodes, so do not worry. That will be back soon, and you will have several of them to choose from. So, with that out of the way, before I go any further, I want to tell you that if you have any questions, if you have any feedback for me, please do not hesitate to email me at rohith@thelostgeographer.net. That's ROHITH @thelostgeographer.net with any feedback for the podcast. Any questions, comments, concerns, if you have any guests that you would like to send me, if you have any topics that you'd like me to talk about, please send them my way. I'll do anything to make this podcast better. Just if it's something that you would share, please let me know, because this podcast is for you guys, for the listeners, and I want to make this as relevant as possible to your lives. So please let me know if you have any specific desires as to what comes on to this podcast. So again, thank you all for your support so far. It's been an incredible journey, and it will continue to be an incredible journey. So yeah, that's kind of what I just wanted to start the show off with. Just a little thank you and a little update as to where this is going and what's kind of been going on behind the scenes. I'm currently still in school, and I'm finishing up my last semester, so I've also been really busy, which is kind of why it's been a little bit difficult for me to do this podcast. However, I've kept up the hustle, and I'm here every Friday for you guys because I know how much that means that, you wake up every Friday, you see the email in your inbox, you get to hear my voice. I know you guys live for Fridays just so you can hear me. But for real though, like, I'm really happy to be giving you this stuff on Fridays every week. And I want to keep that up and I don't want to let down on it. So with that, I'm going to move forward to today's topic. And today's topic is one that the thought never crossed my mind until earlier today, even though I have written a blog post about it. I'll link to that in the show notes. If you look under articles on the site, you can just look how cultural literacy can help you do business. But anyway, a couple of my friends at my university run a club called Business Current Events, and it's pretty self-explanatory. A lot of business students just come in and talk about current events going on in the economy, going on in the business world, a lot of Elon Musk type things, a lot of Google or Uber, things like that. So basically what's hot in terms of like the startup world or the economy, that's what this club is. And I'm really glad that they're doing this because no such club exists. And even though I'm not a business student myself and I'm not a part of it, I feel that it has a very important message to everyone that they need to keep up with their current events. But anyway, so I was asked to come speak at this event by my really good friend. And first of all, I was honored. This is the first time I'd ever given a speech about my message in front of people. And so this was basically, I guess, my first speech as an influencer, if you want to call me that. Given my first speech now, so I'm officially an influencer now. But yeah, so I get up there and he asked me to talk about cultural literacy and how it relates to business and how it helps you do business better. And I thought, that's actually a really interesting topic. And I wrote a blog post about it a long time ago, but I haven't really thought about it since. And it would be a great idea to put on my podcast. So I'll basically sum up what I said there and say it here on this podcast. So basically, when you do business, either as an entrepreneur yourself, or if you're a consultant, or if you're involved in any kinds of negotiations, you know that you have to work with someone else, obviously, in order to get things done, in order to secure contracts, in order to secure different kinds of business deals, etc. However, in today's global marketplace and our global economy, the likelihood that that person is from another country is very, very likely. And that's kind of why on my country episodes for podcasts, I ask about business, because that's a very big thing nowadays, doing business with people from other countries. And it has been actually for quite a few decades, just understanding how people do business in other countries, because they don't all do business the same. And if you mess up, if you do something differently than what they're accustomed to, what they're used to, they might be a little bit weirded out. And worse off, you could offend them without even knowing it. So I'll give you an example. So I'll give you several examples actually. So if you go to the Middle East, a thumbs up gesture is highly offensive, which is hilarious because in the Western world, thumbs up means, yeah, great job, awesome. Or like it basically shows agreement. However, let's say you're in the oil industry and you're sent to Dubai. I mean, I'm pretty sure they're a little bit westernized now, so they understand what these symbols mean. But I mean, if you're talking to the average Arab and he's not necessarily, maybe someone who's just new into the force, he might not know, and it might not just be an Arab. I mean, this isn't just in the Arab countries, this is also like Iran, things like that. So let's say you go to one of these countries and you have a business deal and it goes great and you're like, okay, awesome, sign. And then you show them a thumbs up, like, yeah, great job. They will take that as offense because I'm not sure exactly what it means, but I can venture a guess as to what it means. But that's an incredibly offensive gesture in their eyes, and they're not going to want to do business with you if you do something like that. You need to respect. They don't necessarily know that in other parts of the world that that's not an offensive gesture, and that actually means, hey, good job. Just like you didn't know that in their culture that means whatever it means. So those kinds of things. And another example that a lot of people are notorious for violating is in Japan. And so Japanese view business cards very sacredly. Business cards are not just, oh, you hand me a piece of paper, I'll look at it for 2 seconds and stuff it in my wallet and maybe look at it if I feel like it. No. You take a business card and you look at it in front of the person, you look at them, and then you keep looking, you observe as much as you have to, and then you look at them, you give them a nod of agreement, and then you bow, and then you put it in your wallet. Okay, and I'm guessing if you're a Westerner, they won't expect you to do the whole bow thing, but at least treat their business card with some respect. Because if you treat it, the way Westerners treat it, or people from other countries treat business cards, they're going to be ticked off. They're going to be upset. And Japan is a very custom and culture oriented country. So, and they're also doing a lot of business. So you're going to have to deal with a Japanese partner or client sometime, and you don't want to mess this up for them because they take this stuff very seriously and it could be incredibly offensive to them. So that is where I'm going to start off our discussion, is just saying that it takes two to come to an agreement, and you don't want to piss off the other person accidentally or inadvertently, because at the end of the day, who's going to feel worse? You are, because you're going to say, oh man, I just messed this up for my entire company. And the ramifications it could have for you are A, you could get fired flat out. B, people won't look at you or trust you with as much responsibility. And C, like, you get fired, and if someone asks you why did you get fired, you have to explain this embarrassing story. So read up on that stuff and just make an effort to look for it. Now, I know a lot of these companies offer cultural sensitivity workshops, which can be useful. I mean, I'm sure they outline the basic etiquette in business for different countries. Again, I have another article on this, cultural sensitivity versus cultural literacy. Basically, I feel like cultural sensitivity means, oh, I'm going to tolerate you, rather than cultural literacy, which means, oh, I'm going actually curious about your culture and your customs. So that's why I think cultural sensitivity workshops are garbage. They should be renamed and rebranded and redone as cultural literacy workshops. And honestly, I feel like cultural sensitivity hinders cultural literacy, but that's a topic for another podcast. If you want to look at it on the site, I'll put a link to it on the show notes. So that's kind of what I want to talk about with business and literacy. Just know your manners and etiquette when it comes to business. Understand the business climate. Now, obviously, this podcast, I made sure that we have valuable information here about business as well, because I just know that's what makes the world go round nowadays. It's just business, and we're all just globalizing. So you can definitely check out the podcast. If you go to the country snapshots as well, some of them, especially for like the major countries, have business etiquette under cultural notes, so you can look at it there. So moving on, if you want to succeed in the business world, if you want to have good clients, you definitely need to read up on this stuff. And you'll also just they'll be more willing to work with you again as well, if that's something else I should say. Like, not only will they be happy to do the deal with you because you acknowledge their culture and their background, but they'll be willing to do more for you, and they could be a good reference for you too, saying, hey, this guy is very intelligent in the way he goes about doing business, and that he really does want to really make a win-win situation out of a business deal. That's a big problem that a lot of business people do, is it's always a you versus me type of deal. It should never be a you versus me. It should be a win-win for both. And going in with that mindset involves this and reading up on their culture and customs. Now, another thing I want to point out is part of this also is about how straightforward you can be, because that's another big part of it. If you're too straightforward, people might get, in an East Asian country, they might be like, whoa, what are you doing? Why are you being so aggressive? However, if you beat around the bush too much in a country like the United States or Australia, then they're like, okay, so what do you want? And again, relationships in business are extremely important. So you want to make sure that you forge a good relationship with these people so that you can go ahead and have good business relationship. And so the important thing you need to understand in order to make it a win-win situation is that everyone is concerned with themselves and what they can get out of a particular deal. And by appealing to that, to their sense of, hey, what's in it for me, then you can really just make a business deal go better. And that doesn't even have to do anything with the negotiations necessarily. I mean, obviously it does a little bit, but your personality, your character, your demeanor, your curiosity, and the way they do things is very valuable. They will really appreciate that, and they'll be far more likely to do business with you. Because before you get down to do business, what do you usually do? Oh, you go out to lunch, you go have a drink maybe, I don't know. But if they see that personality shine, if they see that you really are curious about the way they do things, their way of life, they really appreciate it. Instead of just talking about you the whole time, or your culture, or like how the flight was so horrible, things like that. So yeah, and again, some other things that you want to keep in mind is that some cultures emphasize the importance of a personal relationship before or in addition to a business relationship, while others prefer to keep work and play separate and are much more straightforward in negotiation. Now, you have to understand that doesn't mean any method of doing business is better than the other. It's just they're different, and you want to understand it. I also want to point out that it should also be noted that this shouldn't just be a one-way street. You don't have to basically give them a pedicure and massage them and everything. If you really feel like the other person is respecting the way you do business or doesn't particularly care to learn about how you do it, like, you have every right to be annoyed. You really do. And you shouldn't go about doing business with this person, because if they're really just disrespecting you, then why would you do it? And I'm pretty sure that goes without saying, but all I wanted to point out was that this just doesn't have to be a one-way street. However, by your showing curiosity, you're much more likely to close a deal. You're much more likely to get what you want out of that negotiation. So the biggest part of negotiation is making a win-win situation, understanding the other person's background and where they come from. That will give you a huge leg up in negotiation. Instead of talking so much, just listen to what they have to say, non-judgmentally, realize the things that they have to do, and just observe some basic business manners. Like I was talking about in Japan, don't treat a business card like it's any other piece of paper. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have for this podcast. I know it was short, but I wanted to talk about this just because I just did it and it was all fresh in my head. The talk I gave was probably even shorter than this, but anyway, hope you enjoyed this podcast. Hope it was very informative and hope you use this in your future business transactions just because of how imperative it is that you do understand things like this. But like I said, the next coming weeks are going to have some exciting episodes. I can't wait to share them with you. And remember to tune in and rate, review, subscribe on iTunes and Stitcher, please. That'll help. That'll help this podcast grow. Please share. Again, if you have any feedback, please email me, rohit@thelostgeographer.net. Other than that, just remember, it's your world. Own it.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Lost Geographer podcast. Remember to tune in next week for another episode to aid you on your journey towards geographic and cultural literacy. In order to help spread the word, please rate, review, subscribe, and share the podcast so that we can help create a new wave of understanding in our world. Remember, it's your world. Own it.